everyone, it's Shenuka again, and this time I'll show you how I improved on an old project of mine. It's always nice as an artist to take a look at old work and redo it. You can really see how far you've come. Walk cycles are hard, way harder than you might think as a beginner animator, if you were anything like me at that stage. So don't take it to heart if you don't get it right the first time. I certainly didn't. Any experienced animator can tell you that walk cycles are actually very difficult. But they are also one of the basic skills that animators need to practice and acquire. For one thing, they're useful. Your character needs to move around in scenes sometimes, and unless they float around, they need to walk, or run, or sneak. In any case, all variations on walking. Also, they are excellent practice of a lot of the fundamentals or principles of animation, like arcs, timing and spacing, and solid drawing. So, a whole year ago, in the earlier days of this channel, I decided to try my hand at making a walk cycle. The result was decent. People liked it. It seemed okay for a beginner, but also I got some pretty good critiques on it, and I decided to remake it, improving upon all the weak points of the first. I started off by analyzing what could use some improvement with my old walk. I had taken this approach of having different parts of the character on different layers, allowing me to puppet things around and keep them consistent, but I think I ended up relying too much on the puppeting, especially in the torso, and it feels a little stiff and mechanical. Also, there's no forward lean in the torso, and no twist to it. The feet feel like they're slipping around and not planting properly. It's not really a very convincing walk, though it's possible. So with this new project of mine, I managed to upgrade my walk cycle skill level from this to this. But before we continue, huge thanks to Sketchfab for sponsoring this video. Sketchfab is a super cool site with a huge library of 3D models and assets, accessible for everyone. And not just that, it allows you to upload, buy and sell all kinds of 3D assets easily. So don't forget to check out Sketchfab for all your 3D model needs with our link down in the description. And now back to the video. I'm making a 2D animation project in Blender. I started off using this contact pose from a concept I made to get some of the proportions and the pose right. A contact pose is called that because both feet are in contact with the ground. It's a good place to start with a walk cycle. And I'm tracing over this contact pose in grease pencil to get my first frame. I'm making a new keyframe using onion skins to see the silhouette of the previous pose, and I'm drawing the opposite contact pose. As you can see, the torso and the shoulders are twisted in opposite directions to the previous frame, and the legs and arms are switched. I'm making sure to make the silhouettes pretty much the same for opposing poses to make sure the walk looks symmetrical. Between these, I'm going to add a passing pose. This is where one leg passes in front of the other. And I'm also making the reverse pose of the passing pose with the legs and arms switched and the torso twisting in the opposite direction. And now I have a base for the character taking 2 steps. Now I'm making a new frame between the first contact pose and the passing pose, and I'm creating what is called the down pose, where the anchored foot plants itself. Now, in between the passing pose and the next contact pose, I'm adding the up pose, where the leg that is passing swings across before it contacts the ground. Now it's really starting to look like a decent step. I'm cleaning up all the sketches on a new layer, keeping only the main outlines and the construction lines, like the torso and the hip lines. And finally, I'm making the reverse versions of the down, passing and up poses as well, paying attention to the shoulder and hip twist. And now I have a pretty decent walk animation. Using this arc as a reference to make sure that the arms remain the same length as they swing, I'm fixing the arms a little. Adding some shading to really define the back limbs from the front limbs. And now I'm adding some in-betweens to really smoothen out the whole thing. I'm creating the reverse versions of these as well, making sure that the silhouettes stay pretty much the same. I also added a slight head turn by adding the nose and the ear to define that. And there's our basic first pass. For figuring out how to do a basic walk cycle, I suggest taking a look at the Animator's Survival Kit. It's the best resource for basic animation techniques. It gives you the basic formula for a walk cycle and you can just follow it along. And now it's time to refine this animation a little bit. I first got some useful feedback and I decided to fix it. First of all, I added a ground line. Next, I marked the position of the planted foot in each frame. As you can see, it's kind of uneven. This will make the foot seem like it's slipping. So let's fix it. What I'm adding is called a foot tracker. I'm marking points that are equidistant from each other as a reference for where the planted foot should be from frame to frame. I'd recommend using one of these from the very beginning actually. I'm going through each frame and fixing the position of the planted foot. That's much better. The arc of the swinging foot is also a little shaky. So I'm drawing an arc as a reference for it as well. Here the frames aren't going to be really equidistant from each other in terms of spacing, but they have a longer distance as the foot swings across to give it a little bit of an acceleration. I'm fixing the reverse positions of these as well. And voila, it's a more convincing walk. I'm also adding an arc as a reference to fix the arms and hands as well. And I've added a little bit of a drag on the hand as it swings back to make it look more natural and loose. Now it's time to add the character design to this base. I brought in a drawing that I had made based on the contact pose and started tracing it on. Again, starting with the reverse contact poses, I started transferring the design onto the base model. Onion skins are a great help here to make sure that you're getting things consistent. Doing the up, down, and passing poses. And finally, the whole animation is successfully lined. Note the little details that I've added with this pass, like the bouncing hair strands, the follow through on the hand, and the twisting torso being really defined by the collarbones, and the twisting hips highlighted by the belt. And the slight face turn is emphasized by the horns and the nose. I then made a bunch of colored materials to fill everything in, and I started working on that on a new layer under my lines. And now I have some gorgeous base colors. I'm also going to add some shadows to make the front and back legs more distinct from each other. I've made a purple material for it and I'm making a mask over our fill layer, also adjusting the opacity of it and setting the blend mode to multiply. I'm adding shadows into each frame and I decided to make the whole back leg be in shadow to highlight the distinction from the front one. After adding another filter, messing around with the line art color a little bit, adding a little bit of a fill to the eye, here's our final walk. So much work and thought and time for just 16 frames of animation, but I think it was worth it. Hope you learned something about how you can upgrade your own animation too, and a thing or two about making walk cycles as well, maybe. And good luck with upping your own walk cycle game. Happy animating! A huge thank you to all our patrons on Patreon. Their names are up here right now. And if you haven't already, consider supporting our team on Patreon. Also, join our Discord to hang out with us and other creatives, and check out our social media to see what we're up to. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Thanks so much to all